So gypsy has been used as a racial slur for a really, really long time. It's also used way more neutrally in the UK. So you might even meet Roma who are like, gypsy's not a racial slur, even though gypped means to cheat like a gypsy and is used as a slur. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm definitely not going to argue any time with any Roma about how they want to be called, because that varies from place to place. And the word for gypsy in other languages is often really rough, like might directly mean slave or something like that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rhythm in Rome, and we're so glad to have you today. How are you doing, Benef? Paul?
Good. Good. Doing well.
I think I just said hua, which
You
is
did.
so
My God.
military.
You did.
I'm so sorry. Can we do that again? Can we do that again?
Reaction.
No, I loved it. I loved it.
Oh, God.
We're stuck with that, Paul. We ain't redoing that.
Holy shit, I
true
can't believe I
colors
just
came
did that.
out. Oh my God.
That's right. Hoo-ha.
If anybody knows, that's
I thought you were doing
I was
Busta
back in the
Rhymes
military.
for a minute.
that's the military way of saying yes.
But it means so
Rock.
many different things. Who has like
Yes.
7,500 words in and of itself?
Yes. So I apologize.
Okay.
All right.
Today, we want to welcome you all to take a little journey with us. We are our show today is about a very interesting people, culture, the Roma people. And Benef had an opportunity to be able to interview some fellow podcasters of ours. And we're so excited to be able to share this with you because it's been fascinating, getting to know, the history behind the Roma. So Benef, I want you to take us in and really give us an introduction into what we want to talk about today.
Sure. So I was able to interview two women that are Roma, Jezmina von Thiele and Paulina Stevens, and they have their own podcast, Romanistan podcast. They've had that for about 3 years now. And so I met Jezmina in 2012 when I was doing my yoga teacher training at Kripalu. So we were there together for the whole 30 days. So that's when I met her. And one of the first things that she made us very aware of was that she was Roma and that the use of the word gypsy is a slur. And so it's not to be used by people that are not Roma because it's a pejorative. And I didn't know that because I'd grown up using that word.
So when you said Roma, and most people in the world, I would say, I'm exaggerating probably, know Roma as gypsy. Is that what you just said?
Well, I think that they might not know that they're actually called Roma or Romani
Correct.
people. They
Yes,
just
'cause I didn't know that.
classifying them only as just gypsies. And that word is an actual, it's a slur. It's not a nice or a good or a kind word.
It's derogatory
to use. Yeah. And so I didn't know that, but she made that very clear.
Neither
And so
have I.
that brought that to my awareness back in 2012. And so, and I've been following her on social media. And so I thought of the opportunity to interview them because when we think of travel or we get warned about these people in Europe, thieves, pickpockets, stay away from them.
The typical stereotype.
They will use the gypsy slur to classify these people. And I know, that's not correct. There are thieves and pickpockets, yes, to be sure, but these are not all Roma. And so I wanted to talk to her or talk to them about that. Like, where did this slur come from? Where, why do have we been taught to believe that the Roma are dangerous or to be avoided? And basically in all areas of the world, because they don't have their own state. It's a stateless group of people that they're all over the world. They originally came from 10th century or from India in the 10th century and started migrating down to Europe. And so it was fascinating. Like the interview was super interesting for me. And I feel like unless you're an anthropologist or someone that's very well read and just taking the time to understand, I didn't know. And so I had to do my research, listen to some of their podcasts, just to understand a little bit more of who these people are.
And so Roma have been on the move for a really long time because of violent persecution And even when the persecution wasn't overtly physically violent, Roma have been economically discriminated against for a really long time. So a lot of our traditional trades are things that you could work on the road or might even be seasonal that you might need to work on the road, like harvesting or fortune telling, performing, flowers selling, animal training, lace making. We have lots of cool jobs, metalworking. Because Roma were nomadic for a long time, this also became a reason to discriminate against Roma. So a lot of Romani people then were forcibly settled, which was also not good, because a lot of these settlements ended up being tenements or camps with little to no sanitation. And this is still an issue. Roma live in a lot of different ways, but are disproportionately living in poverty.
I think our podcast has a lot to do with creating community. The internet really changed the game for a lot of people, including the generation before us, my parents' generation, like our generation. I feel like we're able to connect and have a stronger community now more than ever.
Yeah,
that's really interesting too that you say that a stateless people, because I happen to be taking a media globalization class right now, and they specifically spoke to the relationship of the globalization from above and globalization below, and basically what that means is what that means in terms of in terms of caste, like a caste system, which immediately brought this to mind because we're talking about a stateless people, and that's exactly what they were kind of making that relationship, and how it's always, if you're stateless, all of it is determined for you, so you don't really have a home basically. So it was just really interesting I just went totally historical on you, and totally like literature on you, but I mean it is a thing, right? So
Like you said, it's not a topic that's
yeah.
in the norm for everybody, and no one, to include myself, did not know, the appropriate word is Roma instead of gypsy. And I find it interesting because even though and it's mentioned as everywhere in documentaries and stuff like this, because I was doing a little bit of research on my own too as well, is that it is considered a derogatory word.
Like biracial, and growing up in a white community was a little, I don't know, I just kind of always felt off. But I don't identify with being Afghan or with being Black. And I wonder if you guys were growing up in Roma communities or Romani communities, or like white communities or other races. Like, was that an issue growing up in America and feeling different?
So I grew up, I'm mixed and assimilated. Not all of my family is Romani, really only my maternal grandmother, but I was so close with her and I look a lot like her.
Yeah.
And, she really raised me so closely. And yeah, I grew up in a predominantly white community in New Hampshire, which is still predominantly white. And I did feel really out of place. And sometimes I wonder if I grew up in a different community, would I have found my identity so important, I think, if I had grown up with a lot of other people who were like mixed and from, different kind of cultures, would I have like zeroed in so much on my Romani identity? Because for New Hampshire, and I'm not even particularly dark skinned, but I stood out a lot and was like very racialized. And so I felt uncomfortable. It was something that I had to keep a secret.
What I find interesting was that it's everywhere. So, and when I mean everywhere, there's movies with the name Gypsy in it, titled. There's songs with the word titled Gypsy. So I guess it's like we're perpetuating that stereotype. You know what I mean? And society says it's okay to do versus others. I know I kind of went a little deep on that, but it was it's interesting.
That's the issue.
I think that's their whole mission,
because the majority is the one that makes the decisions for everybody.
Yeah. So the notes. So just so that our viewers know, the notes that we have, certainly that we've learned is that about the history of the Roma people is that the 10th century, there were 10th century India, which you did mention, Benef, to Europe at the end of the Crusades. 500 years of slavery in Europe. They were discriminated against for skin color, culture, and religion.
Yeah.
They basically, like you said, were on the margins of society, and jobs they did were easily mobile. Why? They were such a
Right.
transient people,
Yeah.
right?
Because they were
Because of
being
the persecution, then they were
persecuted.
forcible.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said that they were, well, it is still prominent
Right.
in society. So it's
Yes.
not a past tense. It's
No.
still currently
Good
happening.
point.
Correct.
And I say this because I'm very familiar with how certain countries are that I lived in Europe specifically, and how they're either treated. I can't, because I don't even know if yes, I have. In the States, we have, but we really didn't classify it the way how they strongly do it in Europe here. The French has an interesting way of dealing with, Roma.
It's not interesting. It's downright shitty, but go ahead.
Well, I was trying to be politically correct.
It's
but
shitty, France.
Like you
It's shitty.
say, it is shitty because they literally do stereotype. They literally say, they'll go in, they'll bust up their camp encampment, and tell them they have 30 minutes to move somewhere else or whatever. Your guests also refer to themselves as gypsy because it's easier, one, for people to know and relate and understand, oh, that's what you are, kind of thing, because that's what was mentioned in some sort.
When I said when I was 5 that I was a gypsy because kids kept asking me where I was from, it went terribly. Kids threw rocks at me. I had a teacher discriminate against me. But again, it wasn't as bad as it has been for lots of other Romani people. But
Yeah.
it's my experience of feeling like, oh, this is something I got to keep a secret. I got to just keep telling everyone I'm Italian and move on.
You had talked about the gypsy slur. I didn't know that because I guess the average American just has no idea, and it's what we see in movies and like the Hollywood version of Roma and the Romani people, and I'm just like, is that even accurate? Where are they getting this stuff from?
When it comes to growing up, so I did grow up in community, and we really weren't like very assimilated into the outside world. And when I say that, like, we couldn't even really go to school all the way. Like, we would be put in elementary school kind of to learn the basics, and we wouldn't show up to classes all the time. Like, school, outside world, like, we call it like Amerikanska, like culture, like Americanized, like that was kind of like looked down upon, and it still is today to some communities, not all communities, but to my specific community. And so a lot of growing up in America was based on pop culture. Like, that was kind of our thing. Like, I don't know. I remember like coming out and being like, whoa, like arranged seating, like for a wedding. Like, I went to my first like American wedding. I was like, this is super crazy. And like, just, I think regular American life, I think is different compared to how it is in the movies, which I thought it was going to be like, just like it is in the movies. And to a degree it is, but there were times where things would overlap, I guess. I think there is that, but it's different. It's different for sure, like growing up as Romani. And of course, like, I realized there was a difference in privilege as well, where when I was in the community, I think when I was wearing my head covering, like, I would always get I guess racially profiled that. And again, I think that's just like looking Middle Eastern in America, like, always doing something like that. But then when I took my head covering off, I never really got any kind of, I wouldn't say never, but I feel like there was a lot less racial profiling. But as soon as, because I never told anyone I was a gypsy, just like you said, Jess, like, I'm just going to say I'm Italian and move on. I say like, yeah, I'm Greek, and like I move on or something. But whenever I would say that I was a gypsy, there was always those big misconceptions. Like, I remember one of the first times I had told someone, it was a couple that I was hanging out with, and the lady was like, well, oh, as soon as I said like, yeah, I'm a gypsy, she was instantly like, oh, well, I knew gypsies and they were both what was it, prostitutes and like all this stuff. And like, I'm like, and no shame to that or anything, but I just feel like there's all these little things that you have to deal with. So sometimes we're just like, whatever, we don't even say, like, we're just kind of tired of explaining it, but yeah.
But when they said that, I totally get it and understand, because I know folks specifically from Romania specifically who get really shit on outside of Romania, because
Shitty shit on. I love that.
shitty shit on, yeah.
Well,
It's a middle
so not,
phrase.
but not all Roma are from Romania. Let's just,
I know that.
even
That is
though the name
correct.
sounds similar, but it is not.
That is
that's
correct.
not the
But
same.
when
Okay, yeah.
within
Just wanna clarify.
Europe, majority of them are from the East, like Romania,
They come
Eastern
from, or
Europe,
Bulgaria,
correct.
yeah. they come from-
Bulgaria,
yes, uh-huh.
and those places. So there's a heavy, that's from that region, and anyone who's from those countries, please do chime in, and we would love to hear from you. But that being said, it comes with stigma. And then one thing that I understood as well from just things that I read and things that I know and heard, a lot of times they're not well educated because they're always on the go. The kids are stereotyped, especially here in France. They are either not given jobs because they want to work, but they can't, because as soon as they find out that they're
Well, they don't
Romas,
have the education. They can't get the education because they don't have permanent
Correct.
homes. And the school's like, well, you don't have a permanent address. You can't
correct,
go to school.
And Benef, you did say it. The reason why they are nomads or moving around all the time is because of what reason?
They were getting persecuted, and so it's like they weren't allowed to be integrated into society because of their skin color, because of their religion, because of their culture. So they get pushed out to the margins of the city and society, and then they have to keep moving. You mentioned that, I mean, the article, that BBC article that you sent me, where they're just not allowed to get jobs or get homes because of the
Stereotype.
the stereotypes, but also the policies against immigrants in general. So that they have to live in these camps that don't have water or electricity, and the police are going to come around and vacate these camps, and now they've got to move again. They're like the political, the policies aren't allowing these people to present day integrate into society.
Yeah,
which is I mean, disturbing, because they don't have any representation, or it's very few if they do have any representatives in any of the European governments or in the EU as a whole. So who's advocating for them?
So we have a list, because I love that you asked this question about good representation. And I also wanted to address the word gypsy for a second, because that's, what we hear the most. So gypsy has been used as a racial slur for a really, really long time. It's also used way more neutrally in the UK. So you might even meet Roma who are like, gypsy's not a racial slur, even though gypped means to cheat like a gypsy and is used as a slur. And so
yeah,
I'm definitely not going to argue any time with any Roma about how they want to be called, because that varies from place to place. And the word for gypsy in other languages is often really rough, like might directly mean slave or something like that. And so, so Roma and Romani tend to be the preferred words, unless you were talking to someone and they're like, please do call me a gypsy. But, Paulina and I use the word gypsy a lot to describe ourselves, because that's how our families grew up talking, but it doesn't feel comfortable for non-Roma who we haven't given that invitation to call us gypsies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
And so you'll also, because gypsy is probably the word you're going to see in a lot of media, but I think if you want to see better representations of Romani people, this is so simple, but a lot of people forget that this is a thing you can do just by looking for Romani creators and organizations who put out Romani work. And you can Google that and find a bunch of cool stuff, but we also have cool things for people to find more specifically. So really recently, John Henry Phillips created the documentary Searching for Romani Heritage. It's a UK film. It's really cool. Then there's also a yearly film festival called Ake Dikia, which is spelled AKE, and then the next word is DIKHEA. And this is an international Roma film festival that's held in Berlin yearly. And so anything out of there is Roma made. And it's a really interesting place to find like international films about or by Roma. Also, the Independent Theater Hungary is known for excellent Roma representation and collaboration, as well as the Romani feminist theater troupe Juvlapen, which is Giuvlipen. And that was founded by Mihaela Dragon and Zita Moldovan. And they do incredible feminist Romani work. They play with themes of Romani futurism. They're awesome. And then I also love the film La Chodram. It's a really beautiful musical documentary that traces the travel route of Roma from India to Spain. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's more focused on music and performance. Stunning. Actress Alina Serban has worked on some really powerful films like Gypsy Queen, Alone at My Wedding, Housekeeping for Beginners. We recommend those. There's also a Netflix series called Infamy, or in Polish, because it's a Polish series, called Infamia. And it came out last year, and we were really impressed by it. It was made with Romani input. It doesn't represent all of Romani culture, but we thought it was a really important series, and we interviewed Joanna Talovic and Toby Gorniak, who both worked on the series on Romanistan. And we gave
a detailed review too.
Hmm?
We wrote a detailed review.
We did. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we really got into it.
Yeah.
We weren't obsessed or anything. No.
Yeah. And I'm gonna rattle off some writers as well if you're more of a reader. So there's Luminita Mihaichua Abba, who's an amazing poet. And she does a poetry festival in Romania every year. Karen Gussoff Sumption, Francis Roberts Riley, Oksana Marafiati, Rain Gagan, Maynard Lakatos, Rajko Jurek, Cecilia Volach, Louise Doherty, Joe Clement. We can give you a list of these if you want.
Hollywood and our culture and society has a way of romanticizing, anything and putting it in movies and, the savior complex and all those wonderful things that that makes up the dream world of Hollywood. But the bottom line is that you actually have people who are living it. And I think as and again, speaking from an American perspective, because you want to integrate and because you want to belong per se, you go along with that. But speaking out against that and I mean, here they are, they're telling you that this is wrong, but still, we're grasping onto the fact that, oh, well, no, it has to be okay. No, we don't mean that, but they're telling you it's not right. Right.
I think we're being biased to ourselves, so.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what the majority does. Absolutely. And in this case, we are in the majority, even though we are minorities.
Right.
No,
so basically what I'm trying to say is that, and we've probably said this many times before, but if someone is telling you that something's not right or they're not comfortable with that, we should listen. We should have that discourse and that conversation, and make it a point to find out or listen to what the plight is. And I think for us as a people and as a society, we don't do that enough. Why we wanted to bring this story and why we wanted to bring to light. So I think I mean, I think what you're saying, Paul, is yes, we do go along with that, and we didn't know what this was, but here's our chance to kind of turn that around and not keep feeding into that stereotype.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And it is the fact, I think what it is, and this is the good thing on reasons why I think it's great that we're doing this topic, is that we can, somebody, at least if it catches one person that's listening, to say, oh shit, I didn't know the word gypsy actually means something bad. So
yeah, and to be gypped is a horrible slur.
Correct.
I mean, and I grew up using that. I mean,
yes, and this is why I was having a little bit of confusion, because it is bad, but yet the Romans still decide to use that bad slur so that society understands what they're saying. So what they're doing to is not helpful, because what they're doing to is they're playing into the fact that, okay, you don't know what Roma is, it's this.
Yeah, they're trying to reclaim the slur for sure. And we see people doing that all over, like women reclaiming the slur bitch and being like, oh, my bitches, using it as kind of like but I don't want no man calling me
yeah.
that,
That's that, and that's the
Yeah.
that's the hypocrisy of it, right? That's
Right. Well,
it's so weird.
Trying to give some background to that, and just so in case you don't know who the Roma people are or personas that has been portrayed, right? So let's talk about the many traditional jobs because and it's Jezmina, right? Did say
Jezmina. Yeah, Jezmina.
Jezmina did say she gave some examples of some traditional jobs that really that we think of as menial jobs, really, but it was based on survival,
They're
right?
survival. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, but is
metalworking,
it
flower selling, harvesting, animal training, lace making, basket weaving, fortune telling, performing, which fortune tellers are everywhere. If you go to any carnival or you do anything, that's the first thing. Oh yeah, we got to do fortune telling.
And I asked that question, like, how do we know? Are they actually Roma? Or are they just using this for entertainment? I mean,
right.
Because that the fortune telling is for them is actually it's a cult, it's a part of their culture. Like that is passed down through generations, taught to you as a young child, and both of them, their grandmothers or their mothers taught them the art of fortune telling and divination, and so it's not just something to be taken flippantly from their in their eye. So people dressing up as gypsy fortune tellers, and they're not actually of the Roma culture or Roma people, is cultural appropriation.
This is so interesting that all the things that that were seen as
derogatory or something?
yeah, well, not derogatory, but just seen as so ingrained, believe it or not, within our own culture, is not right. It hasn't, and it hasn't been.
So the fact that everyone is labeling them as criminals allows the society to justify the persecution and the discrimination, and to just evict them from these camps and not allow them opportunities to work. I mean, so it ends up being like this horrible cycle that doesn't end.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so we'll put a lot of this information definitely in the description. So please make sure you check it out. It's going to be chock full of information with this episode. But we definitely want to thank you for tuning in today. I hope you learned a little bit. I mean, I know I learned tons. I mean, just just from our discussion and being able
and hopefully
to
you won't
chat
look at people in the light, in a weird way when you see somebody on the train or something.
Just
like
have
this
an
or
open
whatever.
mind, right?
Yes.
We don't know their story. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes. So this is kind of the theme basically of our podcast is having an open mind, and hopefully what we're bringing to you is definitely going to help to enlighten you and your travels, and being able to immerse yourself. So with that, we want to say thank you. Don't forget to tune in for another episode of Rhythm and Rome, on Wednesdays at noon Eastern. And more importantly, we want you to subscribe. We want you to like, we want you to comment, we want you to share. We love bringing these shows to you and being able to connect collectively. So please tune in. And it was so great speaking to you all, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
All right.
Thank you. Au revoir.
Ciao.